But it does
Yeah.
remind me, of how Chinese people felt about natural disasters for centuries. That they're
Oh yeah.
basically a response of the heaven, Tian, to the way that rulers behave, right? I mean, we saw
Right,
this
right.
after the um, horrible earthquake that happened in
It was shortly before, yeah.
1976.
So it was like the heaven was giving a sign
And this
that
was
if
shortly
piece of
before
shit Mao
Chairman Mao's
Zedong
death.
is hurting China, it's time to get rid of him. So this earthquake happened in July 28th, 1976, and Mao Zedong dies on September 9th,
So
1976.
a few months before
Yeah.
yeah, is when the earthquake happens. Yeah, and this was
Um,
disastrous. I mean, if you can visit Tangshan and you can visit the earthquake sites, and where you can still see some of the rubble from those times.
that time China was not covering the death toll, but China they still didn't know how many people die exactly, but at least they didn't say like 14 or
I see.
39.
I see.
Official number, official death toll count was like nearly 300,000
Wow,
people. At
that's horrible.
least, sorry, at least 300,000 people died.
But yeah, I mean, you can see all these collapsed buildings here.
Yes.
Yeah. So now you can see memorials erected to the Tangshan earthquake. Some are museums. This is I guess, a memorial hall. I'm not sure where this is. The
Hmm.
wording was always a little bit surprising for me because they use the verb "kang" as in fighting against something or struggling against the earthquake. I mean, how do you fight an earthquake?
Uh-huh.
But maybe that's just my misunderstanding of the Chinese language.
Just a poetic saying that,
But it does sound better,
I don't.
when you can fight against something, because that implies you can defeat it, right?
Right. Then it's nonsense. It's nonsense. Bullshit.
But we have
Yeah.
seen other earthquakes since then in China. Well, the largest modern one was in Sichuan in
Uh-huh.
2008. We can see here this was on
Uh-huh.
May the fifth month and 12 days, so on May 12th in 2008. And if you visit Sichuan, if you go about 80 kilometers west northwest of Chengdu, you can see the buildings that are still there, that are half collapsed.
Hmm.
Yeah. So at this time,
Not repaired yet.
around how many? Around 87,000 casualties were reported.
Yeah. 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 It's horrible.
Here we can see some large characters about natural disasters and you know how people should not forget about this. But what happened when people were questioning the government response? For example,
Hmm.
I remember that the Chinese artist and filmmaker Ai Weiwei was trying to make a
Mhm.
documentary about it, and was trying to
Uh-huh.
follow up on what has happened, and the government
Uh-huh.
did not take very kindly to this.
Uh-huh.
Because Ai Weiwei even made an exhibition. This was exhibited in Berlin, I believe, using backpacks with a sentence that one of the mothers whose child had died in the earthquake has mentioned 大在这个世界上改新生活过纪念
Mhm.
that means she lived 7 happy years or happy 7 years of her life on this earth in this world. Yeah. Well,
Wow.
what eventually happened to Ai Weiwei was that because of these things and because of his rebellious attitudes towards the Chinese government was that he was eventually tried on tax evasion charges. Here we can see figurines of him and two Chinese military policemen of the People's
He
Armed
was
Police.
arrested. First
Yeah.
time, first time he tried to leave China for Germany, he was arrested at the airport.
So this is probably somewhere around this time.
He was one of the architects of the bird's nest in Beijing for the Summer
Yes.
Olympics in 2008.
Yeah. So you know,
Yeah,
obviously very well known artist in China.
yeah, very well known artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess that's why he was hoping that he would be able to report on these things, but no.
No way, no way,
So yeah,
no
yeah.
way.
So yeah, these tax evasion charges seem a little bit dubious.
hmm Yeah, of course. This happened shortly before the Summer Olympics in 2008, and China was cashing on this event. China was even showing at the opening the opening ceremony for the Summer Olympics 2008. Like I remember, like people were marching and showing like support for the victims of the earthquake. So China decided to use it for its own benefits, like a
That's a little
promotion, you know, like a little.
distasteful. Yes, look how well we are trying to save
It was.
people's lives.
It was. I remember, like in 2008, like there were trucks, you know, going with a supplies of for some help for the survivors of the earthquake. But before they were leaving the city, they were driving for hours and hours through the city, so everybody in the city would see that we are sending
Right.
help
Okay.
to this poor region.
Okay.
It was such a show off.
What's
And I also remember they were like on TV. You know, they were like a TV celebrities on ostentatiously, like putting
ostentatiously?
envelopes,
You'll get it. You'll
ostentatiously,
get it one day.
ostentatiously, thank you, putting envelopes in boxes, like on live stream, you know, on TV, like donating their money. It was such a, you know, like, something you don't see like in other countries. Just in China, it
It
was
seems
normal.
very
I
very
remember
very showy, I guess. Yeah.
my boss as a businesswoman, she was asked to donate. She was told how much she should donate.
Oh, okay.
She was asked to donate 10,000 yuan for because of this disaster,
Right.
right? And she was pretending she was abroad. She was not in the office. Every time they came, she was pretending she was not there. But eventually they called her and she had to pay the 10,000 RMB, you know.
Recently,
Uh,
she did better spend it on this than on 360 eggs for a New Year's present or something like that.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was different, boss.
Okay, okay, okay. But
Yeah.
wow. Yeah. So the problem is the reaction is like you've seen and like you mentioned. You know, cover up anything negative claims and instead focus on the heroic efforts of the people who are trying to help. You know, which is nice, but the what do you learn then if you're covering up the negative things that have happened? Because in China there aren't just natural disasters; there are man-made disasters too. If you remember,
Mm,
this is from 2011. This is the site of the Wenzhou train collision, where two trains
mm-hmm,
collided because of an accident. Probably could have been an operator error on these high-speed rails that they were building.
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
yeah, you see, the government obviously did not want to erode the confidence of the people who were taking these trains, right? Because this was a huge investment on the part of the government. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did was that after the very quick, they tried to take care of this problem as quick as they could. After a very quick search for survivors, because you can see some of the carriages they fell down. About four of them fell down,
Yes.
and they searched for they searched for the survivors in them, and then they stopped, and they were supposed to remove the carriages and bury them somewhere, right? Well,
Yes.
what was it about 2 hours after that? There was still one little girl found in one of the carriages.
Yeah, yeah, I heard that. They wanted to bury the carriage already when they found the live girl inside of the wagon.
It
Shocking.
is shocking.
And they were
Yeah.
yeah, and was it the mayor? Was it the mayor of the ministry of who said who gave the orders to literally bury the damaged trains like in the ground. He was saying like, hey, they just wanted to get rid of it as soon as possible and just yeah, they were just that nothing happened here. Just the sooner they get rid of it, the sooner the people forget.
Yeah, but I mean, obviously, this was criticized. These responses were criticized by the Chinese media, um, and but
Because they were allowed to criticize. That's why they
that's
criticized it.
that's a
Somebody
good
gave them the
point.
permission or maybe order to criticize the reaction of the I don't know, local authorities or whoever get the orders, or the Ministry of the Trains or
It was the
what the
Ministry
transportation.
of the Railways, which was eventually dissolved, and the previous chief of this ministry. Here we can see Mr. Dojertun in his happier days was also put on a kind of a showy trial, right? And there were articles about him in the Chinese media about how he kept 16 mistresses, and these kind of uh, a little bit defamatory articles.
Yes. Yeah, this is typical reaction of China. Firstly, they want to blame you for something. They decided, okay, it's time to slap you on your wrists or just clip off your wings, and then they just pile up all the charges they can against you, so you definitely look like the biggest criminal ever.
Well,
Who cares what he did before? Who cares about his 16
mistresses, yeah,
lovers?
that's
Who
not the
cares about that?
point. Yeah.
But in China, apparently it's worse than because of your negligence and incompetence, you kill, I don't know, 30, 40, 100 people. That's worse. Which one is worse,
Yeah,
right?
it's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but for the Chinese people, it's like, oh, he has
It's
60 mistresses.
in
Oh, it must
addition
be,
to that, yeah, he must be
he must
worse.
be guilty. That's like that final proof
Right.
of his guilt. There's nothing to do what happened.
It's a
Yeah,
very good point. Yeah, but what else could they say that he took bribes? Well, everybody does that. What else can you add
Yeah,
on top of
exactly.
that? Yeah, he was actually detained on corruption
Yeah.
charges even before the accident. So maybe after the accident, it was convenient to put some blame on him. Yeah. But
Right,
the
right.
reaction of the Ministry of Railways at that time was a little bit appalling because they said that they wanted to remove these carriages to help facilitate search rescue efforts, right? And the journalists were a little bit
Hmm.
puzzled by this, and then
Right.
spokesperson Wang Yongping said, whether or not you believe this, I believe it. Yeah, which is very
He wasn't ready for this
probably
question.
not. Yeah.
Never was ever asked, never ever doubted like this before in his
Yes.
life.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
shocking.
obviously
Another thing,
they
yeah, yeah,
wanted to get rid of this problem as soon as they could because they didn't
uh-huh,
want them to be blamed for the
yeah,
problem that they have created.
uh-huh, uh-huh. One thing comes to my mind talking about these natural disasters. Like last year, there was the earthquake in Turkey, right? And a whole world was sending rescuers to help Turkey, and China also sent its team. So first team that arrived was a team from Hong Kong, right? And they were ready to go and start rescuing, but the orders came from Beijing that wait, you have
There's
to
a
wait
time and a
for
place for rescuing people. Yeah.
exactly, and they had to wait for 10 hours before the mainland rescuers arrived. And even after that, they still didn't want to go and start rescuing. They had a flag raising ceremony when they took pictures and videos like, look, we arrived, everybody is safe now, everybody can go home, everything's under control. And
Congratulations.
then they arrived at the place and they started planting flags everywhere, Chinese flags on the debris of the fallen buildings, right?
That looks a little bad, actually. A
I
little
think it was
comical.
awful. It was terrible. Everybody was like, what the hell are you doing here, guys? Are you going to do your job or just taking pictures?
Yeah.
And then every time that somebody was rescued, it was like hours and maybe even days after all the buildings collapsed. And they were taking out rescued people on the stretchers, right, and carrying them, passing them from hands to hands, and time to time there was like a Chinese rescuer in the line, and all the Chinese journalists were taking quickly picture of this. Oh, look, we saved another guy. We found another one. It was embarrassing.
Yeah, it is
It was embarrassing.
embarrassing, because it's there for the whole world to see that, you care more about showing that you're
Then
doing
doing,
something than
yeah,
actually doing it.
yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And every time the disaster like this happens, the whole world is trying to help and offer help to China. What does China do? Refuses every help. Refuses because
They
we don't care.
refuse help now, but China is happy to show that we don't have any problems. We can handle everything by ourselves. Look how competent we are.
Yeah, because they don't care about the lives. They care about the image.
So it's a good
Yeah,
point. Yeah, I mean,
yeah,
we don't have to. I know. It seems like we're talking for hours and hours about these disasters, but we don't have to go very far in history. Well, we can go a
yeah.
little far. We can go to tragic fire that happened in Xinjiang in 1994, and this happened in the northern city of Karamay. You can see it here in the northern part of Xinjiang. Here
Uh-huh.
is a theater that caught fire and burned down. And we can see here the officials sitting there, if this is the picture from the same day, but it might be. And
In the front
yeah,
row. Yeah.
what happened was, here we see the stage here, and here we see, you see where
Uh-huh.
the officials were seated, and here we see the escape rats over here. Well, what was the problem with the whole thing? Well, the problem was that
Uh-huh.
some intelligent person, in very thick quotation marks, told the children, 让领导先走, let the leaders go first, yeah, wait for a moment, and as a result, out of the 325 people that died, some were teachers, but 288 of them were school children. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
So,
300.
this was, yeah, the 325 people died, and 288 were school children. You know, and
Officials were okay,
well,
right?
I hope nothing happened to any of the Lingdao who were told to Shenzhou. Yeah. Well,
Uh-huh.
obviously, no, some had to spend time in prison. Yeah, people were tried for this because this is horrible. Yeah, 13 people were convicted. Yeah. But you would be hoping that the government would have learned their lesson. But we do see that during COVID times, there was another fire in Xinjiang. This time in Urumqi. This was at the
Oh
end of
yes.
last year, and again for
Oh yeah.
different reasons. But somebody hadn't thought about the problem thoroughly. That if you have a lot of barricades around, what if there is some natural disaster like a fire? It took too long for the firefighters, or longer than it should have, to get to the apartment building.
Yes. Yes. It was
So
awful.
10 people died, maybe
Yes.
needlessly.
Yes. 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 Definitely. And because of that, that sparked the protests. Like, was it in
Not
Shanghai?
just there. I mean, the
Not just there.
also in Urumqi itself. Yeah.
Yeah, Urumqi or in other cities like in Shanghai, the people were gathering on Urumqi
Yes,
street
yes.
and protesting against the government and were shouting like Xi Jinping,
Yeah,
step
shatai,
down,
as in
CCP,
literally
Jadam,
get
step.
off the get off the stage. Here.
Yes, yes. Because these people doesn't matter. Doesn't mean that because it was in Xinjiang, those people were Uyghurs. Those people are probably Huns. So it's not. It's
Yeah,
nothing to do with the
you have a point.
minorities
Yeah,
or
yeah, it's not
anything.
related to them.
They were real people. I mean, probably Huns. And I mean, they were like mothers with children, and their children were unconscious because they got suffocated or they were poisoned by the fumes, and they couldn't get out. They couldn't seek their help. They couldn't get to the emergency because there were barricades everywhere. Yeah. So typical example, like everything that the CCP does backfires, and nobody. Yeah, they arrest 30 people, or I don't know, 10 people here and 30 people there, but nobody really bears real responsibility for their actions. And firstly, there's the central government, there's the CCP,
Well,
and yeah, and the people get punished. Yeah, the local authorities, they just follow the orders, right?
they do sometimes, yeah. The problem is, like I was saying, I am afraid the local officials are, in this way, being incentivized, to underreport problems. But what if what if that's the exact thing that you're not supposed to do, right? I mean, you can't
Mm.
underreport the numbers of a viral infection, because then you're not going
Yes.
to be able to do anything about it, right? You're supposed to be able to react adequately. Yeah.
Yeah, we talk about it. There were like people who lost their relatives in the hospital because of COVID, and the doctor said, "Okay, we are going to write down pneumonia." And he was like, "Okay, but he died of COVID. I want to write down in the death certificate it's COVID." And they were like, "Yeah, but this must be approved by Beijing. So if you want me to write down COVID, you must write, for the approval from Beijing, and maybe they will approve it. But even then, if your relative died of COVID, the crematorium might refuse to cremate him because of the COVID."
Ridiculous.
So it's your decision,
Hmm.
this way or the highway.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or no
So
crematorium.
how much time do you have? Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, whenever you see this news, you're hoping, okay, well, China's going to learn a lesson from this. It's going to get better next time. The problem is, it's not going to get better until officials are incentivized, for really handling the problems in their areas, and not for covering them up, you know.
China can never ever get better unless starts using common sense, unless the people, even the local officials, can be brave enough to take responsibility or won't be afraid of
Yeah.
getting executed if something goes the wrong way, but by meaning well, so
I understand what you
remember
mean.
we work together in a company. So either we follow the boss's orders, and if something went badly, kind of you were like, nah, okay, you are covered. But if you made your own decision, the good decision, and it was a good decision, you will never get
Yeah,
praised.
that's this. Yeah, that
But
could be a problem. Yeah.
if you made a good decision and something unfortunately would go the wrong way, you would get executed. You are done, you are finished because you didn't follow the orders and it went wrong way. So this is how China works. There is no creativity. People keep talking about creativity. I need to be creative. What kind of creativity? Nothing. You just
I
follow
mean, if you're
orders.
not being, incentivized to show it, why would you come up with different solutions?
Yeah, because you can never get praised. You can only get blamed. And the blame could be little or big. So you choose. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I really hope that we will be seeing more as more information is more easily available now than in the past. So this should eventually make the local government officials be have to
Yeah.
take a stance to think about their responsibilities more thoroughly and
Mm.
figure out what to do.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen, and definitely not under leadership of Xi Jinping. And all I want to say, every time we need some numbers, and for example, of the victims, you always need to increase the numbers by 10 or 100. Then you can get to the correct number. That's China.
So
Yeah.
you have to think about how these statistics are made, why they are low, and why the government responds the way it does, and what's going to keep happening unless something changes.
Mm. Yeah.
Well,
Right, right, right.
well, well, we have seen how officials are sometimes blamed. They say that they were corrupt or they were behaving in an immoral way. Such as having mistresses, but you know, and in many cases this is an excuse. Uh, It's something similar to what
Uh,
happened with the current, or I should say the former Chinese foreign minister, Qingang. But let's talk about that another time.
oh yeah, let's talk about it in our next episode. It's very
Yeah,
entertaining, I
well,
think.
let's have a look. Yeah, something more lighthearted.
All right.
Well, take care, Trabant,
Okay, see you in a
and
few
I'll
minutes.
I'll
Yeah, see
I'll
you in a
see
few
you
minutes.
later. Bye bye.
Yes. Bye bye.